Mary's Cemetery, and this is in Northampton, Massachusetts. We're near the special section, the sections where you bury special cases. And in Catholic cemeteries, there are special sections like this, and it's important, and it follows our rules. Now, in front of us is a section that looks mostly barren. There's some stones, but in this section right here, I'm guessing there's 1,000 burials of young babies. And what happens is, in the Catholic religion, you can't baptize a person, a human, in a cemetery unless they've been baptized to be a Catholic. So babies that die very young and haven't reached the baptism day yet are going to be buried here. Okay, and notice there's a lot of space here. There's at least maybe 8 rows. The rows are much closer together than the adults, and that's because the coffin's only about 2 feet long and a foot wide or so. And I paced it off, and I figured maybe 1,000, maybe a little short, 900 or so burials are taking place here. Now, not many burials take place anymore because most babies are now cremated. But this is the baby section. You can find it in every Catholic cemetery. Now, beyond it, just a little bit to its right, is the Polish section. The Polish very often couldn't afford a cemetery right away, and that was true in Northampton. They didn't get one in this area until they opened one up in Hadley. And so the Polish like to have a special section, and they got one in this cemetery. If you read a lot of these stones, they have the Polish names. And notice there's a lot of gravestones with crosses on the top of them, right? And then you go to some modern burials. Now, if we go a little bit backwards, just a tiny bit, we have another section here. And this section here is mostly individuals that died, single people. Their family would just pay for one section and one deed that covered only one person. Not a big family burial. But beyond that is an important section. And just beyond it, notice that there's about 4 empty rows and nothing else. And this would be adults that were buried because they were impoverished. And their family couldn't afford a burial, couldn't afford a stone, they could afford nothing. And what would happen is the church would bury them. Usually they'd be paid by a fraternal group within the church. And this is a special section called a potter's field. And the burials are paupers' graves. And you notice the entire lack of stones. There's a few, maybe the family, say the person died in 1905, maybe 5 years later the family got some money and they could afford a stone, and the stone would be put up for that person. So this is a very interesting cemetery because you get to see many of the important sections all in the same location. And what we're going to do is we're going to take 2 spins around with the camera. I'm going to point out other important sections within the cemetery, right? And thus you know how to navigate. You're looking uphill towards a big modern family section with the most gorgeous stones up there. But also, most importantly to us, there's a priest gravestone up there with 5 priests' name on it, and there's also one individual priest in the middle of the road in a tiny circle. Now, I know we're going into the sun, but up towards the maintenance building, there's a lot of more family stones. Across the street from there is the second section of St. Mary's Cemetery, made in 1939. Now we'll get away from the sun, look in this direction towards what might be considered the main gate of the 4, and that's where Patrick Moyse is buried. He was the pastor and the founder of 4 different churches in this area, including St. Mary's in Northampton. And there's a mystery surrounding him that I'd like to solve. We did an individual video for him just because it's so interesting. Now, a tiny bit over, the very oldest burials within the cemetery that were never moved from another cemetery are up towards Northampton Street at, I would call it the northwest corner. And you'll find many, many old burials from the 1870s, 1880s. They're very interesting to read. Some of them are burials from the Great Mill River Flood of 1874. Now in this section here you see a schoolhouse, But in front of the schoolhouse towards its right are reburials from the old St. Mary's burial ground that was on King Street next to the old wooden-clad St. Mary's Church. And there might be around 500 burials there, but only about 10 stones. And that's just the way it is. There is so poor, and any stone that they might have has disintegrated. Now that's an old school from 1881, and if we keep going around, you see some modern stones here, and by modern I mean maybe in the last 100 years or so these were put up. All right, so St. Mary's is a great place, a lot to learn within it, and I hope you stick around. They even added a third section across David Road, and it only covers the last 20 years. So we're going to spin it around one more time to give you a sense of what it looks like. Okay, so thank you for coming on this stop.